What I wanted to learn about in moving to South Africa is how to foster human connection in a way that enabled me to grow into roles and into organizations and into movements and into relationships that would allow me to maybe, just maybe, step into the ring of the biggest issues that we were facing as a society. The simple question we have to ask ourselves is, how can we work in a more experiential way? What we've learned in observing organizations over the past 10 years has been that, for the most part, it doesn't come about by sitting around analyzing it. You're not going to figure it out by having a big team retreat and figuring out, how can we really live out our mission or something like that. Instead, it's just a simple attention that's paid and a privileging that's paid to working in an experiential way. Though regularly over the course of a meeting or a conversation or a planning or an event, just start to dig in a little bit into how they're experiencing their work with one another, how they're experiencing their lives, and that ends up shaping the organization and a lot of its decisions. We've come to call this practice inscaping. So what's inscaping? Inscaping, just sharing of experience. It might sound simple or obvious, but in most organizations, what we've found is that a lot of the explicit focus ends up on the forms, on the stuff that you can write down and point to, the structures, the policies, the missions, and the plans. And a lot of the rest of it, a lot of our intuitions, our aspirations, our experiences, our life histories, a lot of that stays below the surface and doesn't actually come and be brought to bear on a lot of the strategy or the decision making or even just the simple day-to-day operations of the organization. And yet what we've found is that it's largely responsible for determining how engaging, how good it feels, and how impactful the organization can actually become. Because that's what's also amazing about this, is that it's not just to feel good in order to have some retention strategy for your organization. This isn't simply about creating a nice place to work. It's about creating a thriving organization in order to achieve all the aspirations you have for the world. And so to get a better understanding of what inscaping is like and your experience with it, we've diced it up into, we've seen two kind of general categories of how people inscape. Basically how people share how they're experiencing their work. One is around the work itself. So this is sharing your experience around a certain task or a project or maybe a relationship with a coworker. And often, what an inscaping might look like here is, you have a relationship with a colleague and you start to share how you've been experiencing your work with them. It's like, I've been working with you for this many years, and you start to share little tidbits over the course of the work with how you feel about working with them. On the other side, we've found that there's a lot of inscaping that can happen around just your life, your personal life, yourself outside of your role at the organization. And this can be your values, the difficulties you're facing, and all that kind of sharing. And it doesn't mean you have to share every aspect of your life. It's not group therapy. It just means that the organization has a space, or you feel comfortable to share the vast area of your life that isn't your role. What we've noticed is that organizations that have none, where there's very little sharing going on, whether it's work or life, they tend to feel what we've called mechanistic. And what that basically means is that you're just in, you're out, that's it. There's not much life to it, and there's not much innovation happening. But as you move up this column, what happens when you start giving permission to share a little more? We found that there's more real-time information for people to respond to and make better decisions about the course of the work. On the other side of the spectrum, what we've found in organizations that are high on life inscaping is that they feel like you know each other pretty well, that there's a sense of camaraderie amongst one another because you have a sense of what someone's route to work was, or that someone's got a sick father at home, and so you're going to relate to them a little different. You might suggest that they leave first today, or you might ask if they need you to take their shift. Just enough information, maybe, to treat one another more than roles. But what's amazing that we've seen in inscaping is that there is an interesting self-regulating mechanism in all this. And so if you're sitting in a meeting and everyone's sharing and it's actually not relevant at all, it's pretty in Par to Inkscape and just be like, guys, like, I'm feeling frustrated right now. Like, we have so much to do, and it's just like, do we really need to talk about routes to work right now? Or on the other side of the spectrum, people might not be comfortable with what you're sharing about your personal life. You might say that's inappropriate for the workplace. People have different ethics and moralities and histories and cultures, and so to presume that you can just share widely without impacting the person next to you in a negative way, we're really trying to say that it's not a culture of share all the time across all spectrums and that will lead to a better world. What we've simply found is that organizations that are able to accommodate both people to share their experiences as relevant about the work, and people to share their life histories and their ideas or just little tidbits about their lives as appropriate over the course of the work, leads to these highly engaging environments.